Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about using Pond Shield Epoxy. Now, throughout my 1,600 gallon system build, one of the first things I had to figure out when I decided to go with plywood tank construction is I needed a way to waterproof the inside of the tanks. Now, I found Pond Shield Epoxy through watching DIY King's videos on how to build a plywood aquarium. So I'll put a link in there to that just so you guys could see exactly the steps of building the tanks themselves, because I more or less followed the same process that the DIY King did. And I wasn't shooting any kind of videos when I started this build, so he's going to be your best reference if you want to get the same type of construction down that I'm using on the 1,600 gallon system. Now, Pond Shield's a pretty easy substance to work with. It's a two-part epoxy, packaged really nice. The owner of the company is really nice as well. If you do call him up, he's more than willing to give you advice and talk to you about the product and its applications. So I encourage you, if you do have a big job to do or you just have questions about the product, go ahead and give them a call. And they sell it in a multitude of different colors as well. I chose black. And it's real simple to do. It's basically you have a part A and a part B, and it's more or less two parts of the A to one part of your B is your general mix. Pond Shield also comes with a good instructions list. It does tell you what kind of surfaces are you trying to adhere this to a smooth surface or a rough surface, and it also comes in a couple different languages as well. It is a very easy instruction. And it even tells you basically on your kit size, because they go all the way up to a 3-gallon kit, they will show you exactly how much coverage is expected out of it. Now, I've used this stuff now quite a bit with this plywood system, and I've found that after about 30 minutes, you're really pushing your luck. You want to make enough to where you can work with it within a 30-minute window. So the first thing I want to do is prep the surfaces of my tanks. Now, I do already have multiple coats on here and I shouldn't need to do any more, but I have another kit left and I don't want to waste any of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put one more coat on the interior of the tanks. And I won't be touching the bottom of the 720 because it's got a PVC bottom already installed, but I'm going to go ahead and hit the walls, and anywhere getting kind of close to the glass I'm going to stop. I just want to use this product and give myself a little thicker coat just to go ahead and give the tanks a little extra protection and not waste this really good product. Some of the things you're going to need, obviously you're going to need a measuring cup. That is going to be used for denatured alcohol, which is also going to be required. And you pick that up at Home Depot or Lowe's or any kind of hardware store. Now, I use these plastic HDX mixing containers. You can use glass containers as well. I've seen people do that if you want to reuse. That these only being about $1 a pop, it's easier for me to simply just use them for one-time use. Once it's mixed up and done, they just get tossed. You're going to definitely want to get some nitrile or latex gloves. This stuff can stain a bit. It does come out with paint thinner while it's still curing, but I don't recommend getting it on you. It's just difficult to get off. It will stain things like concrete and clothing, so whatever you're going to be using around this, you're going to need to make sure that you don't mind it potentially getting ruined. And you're also going to want some paper towel, a paint tray is how I prefer to put this on, with a roller. And I have an epoxy adhesive roller that I picked up, that it's got more of a bristly quality to it, and it's only a 1/4 inch nap. And it allows you on a lot of this to push the epoxy onto what you're applying it to without it getting stuck in the roller. If you try to use a regular roller for just traditional paint, it tends to really get stuck in there, and if you try to kind of squeegee it out at the end, you're going to find that you have a ton of it stuck in the roller. So I recommend an epoxy roller for sure with this. A paintbrush or epoxy paintbrush. And the only thing I find with these, if you're going to be applying it to like fiberglass or something, you definitely need this. If you're going to be doing it into corners and such, this also comes in handy. The only thing I find especially is this epoxy begins to cure a little bit, you know, it heats up and it starts to get a little bit tougher to work with. You might lose some of the bristles here on your brush, so you gotta be mindful of that and pull them if you see them. Otherwise they're just going to be embedded, which you get a thick enough layer, it's probably not going to hurt, but something to keep in mind while you're applying this stuff. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get the surfaces of the tanks all prepped up. I'm going to sand it all down with 60 grit sandpaper on just a vibrating sander. Once I get all that done, I'll show you guys how I mix the product, and then we'll go ahead and do an application. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm in the 480 gallon tank now. I got my vibrating sander here, and I got a piece of 60 grit sandpaper on it. And I go ahead and just kind of run it through this real quick. You don't need to sand it down really hard, you just need to rough up the surface. I'm going to go through and I'm going to stay away from real close to the glass on the bottom and the sides and the underside of the Euro brace here, just because it's already been coated enough, and I just really want to get the sides and the bottom with another coat. So let me go ahead and sand this down, and then we'll move over to the 720 gallon tank and sand that down. Now with the 480 gallon tank sanded down, now we can go ahead and move on to the 720 gallon. So let's move over to that tank, get that one sanded down. I've now moved into the 720 gallon tank, and go ahead and do the same thing that I did before. Just using my 60 grit sandpaper on the sander here. Just going to roughly go over the sides of the tank, and in this case I'm just going to do 3 sides. With all the sanding complete on both of the tanks here, now I'm going to go through and get some paper towel out, wet it down, wipe everything off to get all this dust off of it, and then I'm going to go ahead, let it dry, and then we'll be ready to apply our next coat of Pond Shield, which will also be the final coat of Pond Shield that goes into these tanks before they get water. I'm back in the 480 gallon tank now. Just got to do the same exact thing that I did in the 720. I'm going to wipe it down with a damp paper towel to get all the dust that I can there. And then I go back with a dry one just to dry it off a little and catch whatever dust I didn't get with the first pass. I had to kind of back myself out of this because I'm planning on putting epoxy on the bottom as well, but I've got all the dirt out that I could, and I go over it probably again and just take a visual with a flashlight, make sure we're good. And we can move on to mixing the epoxy and applying it into both these tanks. So the tank's all cleaned out. I've gone ahead and started to prep all my epoxy here. Now, like I said, it's a 2-part mixture. We have our part A with the tint in it, which in this case is black, and then we have the part B, which this one I've already mixed in my denatured alcohol to. I already poured the second batch here just in prep, because as soon as I get this one done, I'm going to go ahead and get this next one mixed up real quick and then start on the next tank. I find that it's easier to make this stuff in smaller batches. I know I'm going to use it all. So whatever I can use, I'm going to use. And I just want to make sure I get it all mixed up good. And then once I have this alcohol in here, I'll go ahead and mix in the tint. We'll get it going. I'm going to go ahead and get the camera in position there. And then I'm going to start applying the epoxy to the tanks for the very last time. The clock started. I've got the first batch of epoxy mixed up for the 480. I'm going to go ahead and get it applied. As soon as I do, get the second batch ready. Get it into the 720. Let's go ahead and get this done. You guys can watch the montage. Enjoy. First tank is all done. Getting the second batch of epoxy ready for the 720. With the 720 gallon finally coated, I got a little bit of extra. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the 480, put it onto the bottom just to thicken it up a little bit. Other than that though, we're done. Thanks for watching this week's video. If you liked the video, please give it a like. And if you'd like to see more videos on my 1600 gallon system, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And of course, if you have comments or questions, leave them down below. And I'll see you on the next video.